This post is titled "The Most Tragic Verse in the Bible." Unlike the last post, this verse offers no immediate hope, so I call it the most tragic. I know this is a judgment call, a matter of opinion, but for me the verse evokes such a deep well of sadness. Ironically, it opens the deeper well of God's compassion as well. It does so by revealing his heart, one that suffers. Here's the verse. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Genesis 6, 5-6. Here's the setup. God has created all that there is, and it's all very good. Man and woman are destined to be the royal co-heirs of that creation. And then tragedy strikes. There's seduction, unbelief, betrayal, shame, lying, conflict, and finally murder. Like a deadly virus, sin infects the created order and fragments the human soul. The beauty of it all is tarnished, like graffiti spewed on an artistic masterpiece. Instead of feeling warmth and light from God, the human heart now pumps out the sewerage of iniquity. However tragic all of that is, the real tragedy follows. It's God's response. The love of his heart has become bitter sorrow. He enters what he has not known before. He enters suffering. He enters grief. What in the world are we to make of this? What happens when we start to see sin, our own sin, in terms of the pain it causes God? It's the same pain endured by Jesus, a man acquainted with grief, who was crushed under the weight of the world's sin on the cross. It's the same pain felt by the Holy Spirit, who is grieved over the sin of believers. It seems that the whole Trinity is swept up in the suffering of grief. The anger of God has been widely misunderstood. It's not the anger of a petty despot. It's the anger of a jilted lover who's been betrayed. It's the anger of a father who watches the self-destructive behavior of his children. Behind the anger is the grief. And behind the grief is a white-hot compassion that burns for us. I'll never forget the first time I realized that my own sin broke God's heart. I was walking out in the countryside where the landscape widens into grassy fields with horses grazing. It was a pastoral scene you would only imagine in paintings, but inside I was flooded with sorrow. I remember saying to him over and over, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to hurt you anymore. Some switch was flicked inside of me. I came back from that walk a different man. I had come home to the Father's love. None of us is too far from God that our lives don't affect him. What you do or say today can bring him joy or heartache, gladness or grief. There is a weight to your soul that moves something inside of the heart of God. To ignore that weight is to bring ruin and sorrow to your soul. To accept it is the road back home to the Father's love. This is how your story can be swept up into God's story, turning tragedy into wonder. Open your heart to that wonder today. Open your heart to that love.